It's story time.
Good morning and welcome to Storytime. Boy, I never imagined life to be like this. I don't know exactly what I thought 2020 was going to be like. It certainly wasn't in line with some of the science fiction and fantasy books of my childhood. And yet, in the same notion, there are some things that are exactly as I expected them to be. Now, I forecasted that I was going to share the biggest, most important decision that I have made in my life. What I said yes to 21 years ago. And I don't want this to sound trite at all, because it's not. But 21 years ago this week, I married my partner, I married my husband. And it's one of those milestones that is not only evidence of labor and work and effort, but also of joy and celebration, and honestly, one of the greatest accomplishments of my life is to be in intimate relationship. Not every day is easy, but I love my husband, I love my partner in such a deep and honoring way that I want to be better. I want to be a better person myself. And I think that that's key to making decisions, big, powerful, important decisions, is finding those things that we can say yes to that help us to show up even more authentically, even more vibrantly, even more wanting to be present in the moment. So our courtship was a very brief one, very quick. Literally, we met at a place of employment, and we were both there kind of in transition and temporary gigs. And yet we didn't date until a couple months later. We had our first date. Between our first date and our second date, I secretly, not intentionally trying to keep a secret, but I was intentionally trying to keep a secret, because I thought that if he knew that I was doing what I was doing, we wouldn't have our first date. And what was it that I was doing? I was planning to move. My circumstances had changed, in which case I needed to relocate. But I was really into this guy. I was really hopeful that there might be something more here. So I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my, well, that's not true. My employer knew, because they were helping me to make the transition. They were helping me transition within the company down to Maryland. Actually, that was how I came to Maryland. So I was being a little, now that I'm here talking about this, I was perhaps not telling the entire truth to my friend at the time that I would be relocating and moving soon. But as the story goes, I was very just honored and excited by the potential of this relationship with Peter, in which case on our second date, he proposed. And it was a very casual, intimate, cozy proposal. To this day, I still sometimes ask him, like, did you really intend to ask me? I mean, we were sitting on the couch of his childhood home. We had had a picnic lunch that day, and he just asked. He just said, would you marry me? And I said yes. And that was it. I mean, that was our second date, a week after our first date, and then I moved away. So I wanted to kind of frame this not so much in the whirlwind romance that it was, in the love that continues today. We'll be celebrating our 21st anniversary on Friday. Last year, this time, we were away on a week-long trip that I gifted my husband to help us celebrate 20 years. And we went to Las Vegas, and we got to see some shows and to just be together in kind of a weird place. Las Vegas is weird, not my favorite. But anyway, here we are a year later, and a lot has changed, and yet a lot has remained the same. And what I'm really reflecting on these days is, how do we make these big decisions? How do we know when to say yes? And it's something that I've been thinking a lot about, and it's something that I have gained a great deal of clarity and confidence in my personal life, even in my professional work life, about how it is that I know when to say yes, when to say no, and even my favorite these days is, how can I create some additional space for the maybes and the I don't knows? So I use this analogy that the cervical spine, right, that connects the head to the thoracic spine, making up the three components, the cervical, the thoracic, and the lumbar spine down to the sacrum. Anyway, that's a side note. But the cervical spine has 7 vertebrae. And in that sense, the first vertebra helps us say yes, right? So if you know anyone who cannot say yes, then there's something wrong with that connecting point between the skull and cervical one, whether it's the muscles, the tissues, the tendons, all of that is moot at this point. But C2 is what allows us to turn our head from right to left. It literally is kind of a circular disc over C3. C3 through 7 have these little arms that stick out to the side, and 3 has this thumb that holds C2, but C3 through 7 help us to say, I don't know. 1 says yes, 2 says no, and 3 through 7 give us that space of bending our head, our ears to our shoulders. Now there's other muscles that are involved in the shoulder shrug for sure. But what I love about this analogy and what it has helped me do is to get clear about making space for the I don't know. For every yes, there is a no, but for every yes and no, there may be multiple pauses, multiples I don't know. In other words, do I need to seek out more information? So what I know about the times when I made big important decisions, things like saying yes to marrying my now husband of 21 years, is that when it aligns with my best self, it's easy to say yes to. But that's only easy because I know who I am. I know who my best self is. That doesn't mean I always live there, but it means that I'm at least intimate enough with that sense of truth and alignment that I know when things align, and I can trust that belly brain, that gut brain, to guide me towards something that is in my best alignment, that is in my best purposes in living. Now, that's not to say that I don't have hardships or that I don't make mistakes, but it's to say that when I can align my belly brain, my gut, my heart brain, my emotions and my stories and my ego, and my intellectual, logical, linear, practical brain, when I can align them in a way that breath moves freely and my body is able to express itself in movement and in celebration and in joy, that to me is the alignment that yoga has now taught me in terms of more tangibility. So, did I know that I was going to have these 21 years with my husband and hopefully another 21 more or more? No, I didn't. But I knew that I wanted to spend more time with him, that when I was with him, whether it's in person or just in relation, I'm a better person. I want to be kinder and more patient. I want to learn things that maybe I didn't even know existed because of the way in which he challenges me to show up and encourages me to speak up and honestly supports me to stand up for what I believe in. That's, to me, what we want to say yes to, is those relationships, whether it's relationships with an individual, relationships with an employer or a business opportunity, relationships with our community, relationships with our politics, relationships with even ourselves, right? The self that I used to be, the self that I want to be, can I come that into alignment? So I am celebrating 21 years with my partner, my love, my husband. And I hope that together we can continue to explore these questions that I'm hearing about how do I know what to say yes to? How do I know when so-and-so is the right so-and-so, or when the opportunity is the opportunity for me, as opposed to being driven by fear? I want to cultivate deeper understanding for all of us to make decisions from love and from hope. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and I'm curious as to whether or not that's something that would serve you. Are you interested? Are you looking for more understanding and depth of practice in knowing when and how to say yes to living your best life, to knowing how to discern the difference between choices and options, how to really cultivate the discipline to stay with something when it's hard, when it's seemingly, potentially at risk of dissolving? How long do you stay with it? When do you let go? All of these skills are all intertwined into the yoga practice, deeply rooted in the traditions. So I've been thinking a lot about how can I support my tribe, my circle, by sharing the practices that have helped me and my clients to show up more authentically, to show up for more vibrancy, to show up in relationships that help them be their best selves. Let me know, PM me. Is that what you call it? DM me, direct message me, personal message me, direct message me. Let me know if there are questions that you have in how to live your best life and how to make the decisions to move you into living more authentically, living in greater alignment. And maybe that is a relationship question. Maybe that is a life's work, a dharma question of your employment. But maybe it's also just about how do you make decisions that honor who you are, so that you know when and where to show up, and when to stand up, and when to speak up. This is kind of a weird story time. To be honest, it wasn't exactly what I was thinking as I rode my bike to the studio today. But the more and the more that I reflect on you and wanting this story time to be as rewarding for you, more rewarding, hopefully, for you than it is for me, I really wanted to ask, how can I support you? What I'm hearing is that there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of struggling, and there's a lot of uncertainty. When and where do I show up? Do I wear a mask? And what is it saying when I do? We got to get clear about who we are. We got to get clear about what matters most so that we can say yes to the things that help us to live our best lives in service and support of each other. Be well. Thank you so much for letting me share this little story. I look forward to hearing from you. Please, honest, direct message me. Tell me what's keeping you from living your best life. How can I help you say yes to living in greater alignment? Take care, be well, and I'll see you soon.